first video in a week and a half nearly. So if you have not heard, which I don't know why any of you would have unless you're one of my athletes or follow my wife on Instagram, but my father-in-law has passed away. So we had a emergency trip back home to Nebraska. So I have not been here in North Carolina for a week. Got back Sunday morning at like 3 a.m. I trained for a week. Did that for the first time this morning. That was very rough. Did very little. Did not lift a bunch of weight. Snatched, benched, called it a day. So headed back up to Nebraska Tuesday night to Wednesday night for the funeral. Gonna be back. Nikki won't be back till Sunday, so I've got the week to myself. But yeah, now we kind of got to get back into this whole content thing. Did not post at all on Instagram or YouTube at all last week. But now we are diving back in full force like we didn't even miss a step this week. So what we've got is, see, now I've been out of this for so long, I can't remember things. But there we go. If something is important, if you put something in the program in the first place, it should never leave the program. If something is an important quality to be trained at one point for an athlete, it is an important quality to be trained at every point throughout the athlete's development. Now, getting into that, like, clearly there are going to be some times when you prioritize some things over another. So if you are in an off-season phase, your 1 rep max does not matter nearly as much. If you are in a competition phase, your bicep curls, your accessories do not matter nearly as much. However, though, if something is important, oh my God, look at this, I'm a fucking noob. What am I doing? God, it's like I've never even posted before. I really need to get a new one of those things that doesn't fall off all the time like that. If something is important in one phase of your training, it is something that is going to be important at all times. There's this crazy fucking idea that as we get closer to competition, we don't do as much strength, we do a bunch more volume way out. If there is something that gets you better, why would you change it? If you are, for example, like you go from like very high volume way out from competition to you get to competition and you're like very low volume, barely doing anything. And in that high volume time, you are crushing PR after PR. You're feeling amazing. Why would you change from that? Why? If you have found something where you are getting tons of progress to the point where you are PRing week after week, you found something that works. And if you are getting better like that, then hey, you should probably keep fucking doing that. The things that got you better are going to be the things that probably keep getting you better. If you are doing something where just your shoulder feels fucking amazing during bicep curls, so you're hammering bicep curls during volume, as you get closer to competition, your coach tells you, hey, we need to focus more on the lifts. You don't need more bicep curls. Your shoulder starts to hurt. Well, you stop doing the fucking bicep curls. The things that got you there are the things that are going to keep you there. If you look at like just a typical training program, like you go through a 4-week cycle of just like a normal weightlifting prep. You hit a big old fucking, like, let's say a 5 kilo snatch and clean jerk PR at the end of that. Then you go into your competition prep, you change up every single thing you've been doing, and then you go to the competition floor and you bomb out. You don't hit anything good. You hit less than your last competition total. Well, no fucking shit. You just changed everything. You went from a phase where you're hitting PR after PR. You change the entire thing up, and then you're surprised that you don't hit a PR. If something is important in the program, it needs to stay in the program. One example of that is heavy singles. Like, there is a definite skill to a heavy snatch and a heavy clean and jerk single back-to-back. Like, there is a definite skill to that. So much weightlifting programming has none of that unless you're in like that 2 to 3 week competition prep. You're doing all this shit where you are not practicing for months or weeks or months on end, where you are not practicing the actual competition itself, and then you expect that you're going to get all of that back, learn all that, be ready to go in just a couple weeks' time. That's not the fucking case. You look at any like real non-barbell sports, like they're practicing all the fucking time. Like, they're running routes, they're doing scrimmages, they're doing spring games, they're doing a bunch of shit that is mimicking the real scenario as much as possible. Because coaches in every other sport realize if something is important at one point when we need to be at our best, then it's probably important at other points too, because that's just how fucking things work. So on that point, you need to be doing some sort of heavy singles all the damn time. Now, obviously, that needs to change a little bit. We shouldn't be maxing out our snatch and clean and jerk every single fucking week. Like, probably not going to be a best case scenario. However, you can vary things up a lot. So even we look at absolute versus relative intensity. Absolute intensity is purely just the weight on the bar as a percent of your 1RM. So if you have 70 kilos on the bar and you can snatch 100, your absolute intensity is 70 kilos. However, we do that as an EMOM, we do that as a wave, we do that under any other number of constraints of that competition lift. Your absolute intensity stays the same. Your relative intensity changes dramatically. If you're doing, let's say, 10 sets of 1 at 70% as an EMOM, absolutely, that is 70%. Relatively, that feels a lot fucking harder than 70% to you. So there are ways where you can still practice a heavy single lift, practice the actual competition scenario without having that same load on the body as that heavy competition scenario. Because, again, if a heavy 1RM, a heavy competition lift, single, is important during our competition prep, it should really be fucking important the rest of the time. However, we have to take into account the actual training stimulus and what our goals are. That's why we need to have those heavy singles in the program, but have some sort of change up, some sort of constraint added in there to then make it so we're not burning out, but we can still get that stimulus. So ways we've been doing that is, again, EMOMs, waves. Something recently is as few perfect sets as possible. So what I'm having my athletes do, I'm giving them, let's say, 15 reps at 75%. Their goal is to complete those 15 reps in as few perfect sets as possible. So theoretically, could be 15 sets of 1 set of 15. And that is going to auto-regulate itself based on how that lifter is feeling and performing that day. So we're getting that heavy strength stimulus, that high relative intensity of the lift, because they may be doing sets of 3, 4. Fuck, I had someone do a couple 6s. They're getting that heavy stimulus of the competition movement without the absolute loading of that competition movement. So there are ways around it. But along that same line, like accessories, people go ham on accessories on far out competition. Then once they get to competition, they stop doing them completely. Like, hey, if those are the things that are keeping us healthy, keeping us able to do the sport, why do we stop doing them when we need to be at our best? Like, how does that fucking make sense? Like, people go fucking wild when they see the Chinese national team at any event and they're doing their fucking accessories in the back room, or you see like any of their training videos, they're doing accessories out the fucking ass. Like, oh my God, why do they do so many accessories? Well, it keeps them healthy. Their body feels better. So what do they want to do while they're on the competition platform? They want to feel better and they want to be healthy. Crazy enough. If you're not healthy, if you can't make a lift, well, it doesn't matter how perfect your peak was if you can't even step on stage. Everything that is important to be in a program should be in the program year fucking round. But how we actually allocate volume and intensity to that needs to change. That's what programming, that's what periodization is. But again, we should not just be taking shit out. If being athletic as a fucking athlete is important, then we need to be doing athletic shit like plyos and isometrics year fucking round. But we do not need to be hammering home 100 contacts of plyos the same week that we're about to go step on the platform. So we still need to have them in there. We just obviously need to change them up. But too much of the time, coaches are taking shit out, adding stuff in with some rhyme or reason, but when you actually really dig deep into it, there's not really a good reason to take it out. It's just, oh, we're focused on this. Like, all right, well, do we still not need to be powerful? Do we still not need to know what a heavy lift feels like? Do we still not need to push something? And yeah, we still do. So that stuff should not come out. We need to actively keep everything in the program, but be smart about how we actually phase things and how we actually change things up. So at the end of the day, if it's important, do it fucking year round. Like, the whole point here was that heavy single or the heavy Olympic competition lift. you should be doing heavy competition lifts year round. Heavy is going to be completely relative on that relative intensity, though, not the absolute intensity. Our absolute intensity should definitely waver throughout the year based on where we're at in our cycle. But that relative intensity, we need to be pushing that week after week so we can feel it, and so we don't just have to fucking sprint at the end for that last 2 weeks of, oh shit, I forgot what a heavy weight in the competition lift felt like. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So this is my dive back into this. This was definitely nowhere near one of my best videos in terms of public speaking, just because I have not publicly spoke in a week and a half. So apologies for my rambling and all over the place. I also am not used to this fucking pollen anymore because we went back to fucking Nebraska and it was snowing. I get back here and I can't fucking breathe. I've used some of that Afrin nasal spray like 3 times in the past 2 days. Used it this morning and my nose is already clogged again because of all this fucking pollen stuck in my lungs. So we're in a little bit of a struggle bus today, but hopefully we will be a little bit better tomorrow. Scratch that actually, because Tuesday, Wednesday, there isn't going to be a video because I'll be headed to the airport and headed back home. So you're going to have probably another rough video on Thursday, and then hopefully by Friday, or at least by next Monday, I'm back into my routine and not giving y'all just that poor quality information.